And we start all over again with a supportive and positive attitude because it helps our loved one do his or her job effectively and return home to us safely. We are also expected to have much of the same discipline as our commissioned parent has, because we are considered a reflection of their ability to lead. Although the connotation of the word brat, as it's used by the general public, isn't really flattering, I think I was spoiled in the best of ways. I got to travel to some pretty awesome places, learn other people's customs, and see what works in their world differently than in ours. I also got to witness our troops returning from battles, won and lost, and to hear some of the thinking that had led to a victory and some of the thinking that ultimately helped formulate better strategies from the lessons of defeat. I'm sure it won't surprise you to learn that I kept a diary, actually quite a number of them over the years. The budding journalist in me was always listening, observing, and documenting the experience. There was so much to take in. Just hearing about how my dad and other military personnel approached challenges when they were in the midst of war, and later learning how we maintained peace during the time when my father worked for the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon, became the basis of my own views about success and how to attain it. The U.S. military is known the world over for its advanced technology, as well as the prowess, skill, and dedication of its service members. When you grow up in the company of its leaders, as I did, you understand that this greatness is something that is cultivated. In other words, greatness is taught. And as such, we can all learn to be as accomplished in our own lives and fields of pursuit as our country's troops are. And that really is the purpose of this audiobook. The desire to excel is a very real part of human nature, and some would argue that it is inherent in the American makeup. People in this country have always had a yearning to be great, and we always will. A host of important issues in our society will continue to be hotly debated, and I want to be at the forefront covering them. Some issues may even remain undecided for a while, but in the meantime, we can at least take charge of our individual paths to success. To do so, we can draw upon the best resources around us for guidance. In my case, that guidance lies in my diaries, all the copious notes I took over the years observing how the military repeatedly overcomes challenges and achieves its goals. In those journals, I've kept lessons from conversations with my dad, events in my own life, and in the world at large. And these lessons weren't just learned from clear-cut victory. My father and the U.S. military have had their fair share of trials and tribulations. My dad did 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. That was a war where we as a nation really had to stop and reassess our approach and what winning in that context even meant. As a result of those tough times, whole pages of my journal were filled with reflections about character and purpose. When I frequently revisited those notes as a teenager and 20-something, I picked up recurring themes. Basic tenets started to emerge. I adapted some and applied them to my life. I was amazed at the outcome. I continued to make them my own, to make them relevant to my interactions off base as well as on. The military loves mottos, so I followed their lead. Most of these tenets lent nicely to being remembered with short, pithy sayings. Soon I realized I had crafted some really practical and helpful rules to live by. Life continued to test and refine these rules. I'm still very connected to military friends and colleagues, but I've been living a civilian lifestyle for years now, and I can tell you these rules, with their military underpinnings, still serve me well. They're universal. They guided me through some difficult experiences, not the least of which was my mother's passing, and a serious health crisis my father braved and fortunately rebounded from. And of course, they've helped me plan a career path, seek increasingly more challenging and rewarding positions, win industry recognition and awards, and make choices that continue to enrich my marriage and family life.